Yep, that's the Edge. Hey guys, Thunder E here, and welcome to another battle vid. This is between, of course, as you know, the iPhone Air and the Galaxy S25 Edge. So let's start off with the Air and see what Apple has brought to the table with this device. First thing I'll tell you, it feels really comfortable to hold and it's light. It feels really light, and that's something you definitely have to hold yourself to understand how light this device is. It's 6.5 inches, and yes, all the wallpapers will be down below. Follow me on Pinterest. This display has a maximum nit brightness of 3000 nits, and you also have that 18 megapixel center stage camera, which we talk about when we discuss cameras, but I really like that camera on all the new iPhones. Now, back of the device, we have a single camera here. That's just one 48 megapixel fusion camera. We also have this nice layout where you can see the camera bump is very different. And this is by design. So at first, we all made fun of it when we saw leaks and rumors, but to Apple's credit, this is where all the internals are housed, right here in front of all the internals, right in the spot. And then this is all battery. So making one of the biggest batteries they've put in a device like this at 3,149 milliamps. Not stated by Apple, but people have kind of done the digging in there. And especially when you look at the size of the device, 5.6 millimeters thin with a massive battery at that size. What does that battery give us? We'll find out soon enough. But overall build feels really nice. It's powered by the A19 Pro processor. This is the 5-core GPU, so it's not the full length processor in here. And we do have just a single speaker at the very top, no speaker at the bottom. That's another thing that they kind of took out as well. So how does this stack up hardware-wise against the S25 Edge? Now the Edge comes in at 5.8 millimeters thin. Very thin device, but when you stack it up to the Air, you can see how the Edge looks thicker, especially the way Apple designed the slight curve to the Air. It makes the Edge look thicker, even though it really isn't. But because this device is thicker, it does have something that the Air doesn't have, which I was about to mention. The Edge has a SIM slot, which there is none on the Air. The Air is completely eSIM, which might sound great for some people, but I do like the fact that the Edge has, of course, a SIM slot there. Now, besides that, it also can do multiple SIMs. You do have this titanium build all around, which is nice. We've got, of course, Gorilla Glass Victus in the front. It is a 6.7-inch display, lovely looking display, nice round edges. The front-facing camera, we'll see how that pairs up to that center stage. Now at the back, we do have this dual camera setup. So we have a main sensor and a wide. That main sensor is a 200 megapixel sensor. Similar, I wouldn't say the same, but similar to what you find in the S25 Ultra. So that's also a nice plus there as well. So the dual camera setup is nice. Now speakers, we have a stereo speaker setup with 2 speakers, both the top and the bottom. So in terms of just hardware features, I give that to the Edge. In terms of the design and feel though, I kind of like the Air, minus the hump in I don't know. I'm conflicted, to be fair, because the first time my wife saw this, she just said, "Ah, God, they copied the Pixel." Yes, so it kind of reminds me of the Pixel. You guys know that. You're probably saying in the comments. So the Edge. Now battery life. Because these devices are very thin, we have the Air with about 3,149 milliamp hour battery, something that people have dug up, and the Edge at 3,900 milliamps in terms of the battery there. What's the battery life been? So I've been using this device for roughly about, I'll say 4 or 5 days. And I will have to say that when it comes to battery life usage, the Edge goes to the Edge. Sorry, I had to say that. The Edge goes to the Edge, yes. Because of that 3,900 milliamp battery, it just does a better job at lasting longer. I'll give you my daily usage example. So with the Edge, if I wake up and start using the phone at 8 a.m. in the morning, I can go all the way to roughly around 8 p.m. at night and get down to roughly around, I'll say between 15 to 20% of battery life. While with the Air, if I start at 8 o'clock in the morning, I can go all the way to roughly around 6, maybe 6:30 to get to the same 15 to 20%. So again, there's roughly an hour and a half where the Edge has an advantage. But of course, you do have that extra roughly 800 milliamps there, which is great and adds more. Now, Apple does have a solution for you, and it's this very custom battery pack for the Air here, which slaps and fits nicely, and they claim will give you a battery life closer to something like the Pro and Pro Max. which is impressive and nice, but also makes it thicker, slightly heavier, but to be fair, not that heavy. And I think a lot of people will be picking this up. So when it comes to battery life, this is the case here. Now, I'm going to be moving to gaming, but I'll talk about battery life in gaming as well. Because with the Edge, you're also getting better battery life for gaming, starting at 100% for both devices, and playing for about 2 hours. With the Edge, I got down to roughly around 65, while with the Air, it dropped down a little bit more to about 63, 62. So that's just playing all the games that I'll be showing you next with gaming. Okay, so speaking of gaming, this is where we start off with, of course, our Geek Benchmark scores. And looking at the CPU scores, single core and multi-core, there's a clear difference. The single core scores are about 3,500 for the Air and about 2,800 for the Edge. That's like 1,000+ gap there. So it's quite big compared to the multi-core scores where it's much closer between the two, a couple of hundred. So single core scores, again, the iPhones definitely score quite well. Now GPU scores doesn't really matter because this one's metal. And you know, so basically it's different measuring elements there, but you do see that those numbers are still pretty high. So we're looking at something that should give us some really good performance from both devices. And when we talk about gaming, we went ahead and played a few games on here, starting off with Call of Duty Mobile. Now Call of Duty has now decided to lock frames for both devices at 60 FPS. So I was able to run both of them at max settings, and starting off with the Air, it's getting about 60 frames per second, still pretty solid all the way through, and it's Call of Duty Mobile to be fair. Same thing with the Edge, 60 FPS as well, no issues, no slowdowns whatsoever. Now moving over to Delta Force. Delta Force, I couldn't go to the max settings for the Air, and with that, I pretty much stayed at 60 FPS for this game. Still played very well though, and also ran pretty smooth. Now with the Edge, I could go to 120 frames per second, and it ran at 120 frames per second. Very smooth, very solid. Now this, of course, most likely is due to the fact that the game is not updated for the new chipset on the A19 Pro, but it's nice to see the Edge takes the win there in that department, at least for that game for now. And then finally, Genshin Impact. This is where we're going to be looking at also temperatures, because that game runs really hot, especially for devices like this that are super, super thin. So Genshin Impact on the Air and on the Edge, running at its max setting 60 FPS, and both games ran really well. You would see some fluctuations, but the average FPS was still 60 FPS for both games. Played for about 30 minutes each time, which was good to see. There were some dips and downs. That's just what's going to happen. But it was clear that they ran really well. Now, when it comes to temps, this is where it's quite interesting and pretty solid overall. Both devices, playing Genshin Impact, maximum temperatures that I got were 110 degrees. That's it, 110 max, especially that there is no special cooling for both devices. But I also have to give a nod to the Air, because the Air has everything housed right here, and that's it. While this is a bit more spread out within the Edge, but still 110 for both devices is pretty solid. And that is a good thing. Now, of course, you're gaming, you're listening to audio. How well do the speakers sound? So let's take a listen to audio for both devices while gaming, and then some music, and also some dialogue. Now, I do have a speaker test with the Air, with the other devices, so definitely check it out to see how the rest of the iPhone line goes, but let's go ahead and watch. Yeah, not cool. The single speaker is okay. To be nice, it's okay, but it's not the best thing. Definitely stereo setup definitely works, and the speakers just sound much better on the Edge compared to what the Air puts forward. It's just a better experience overall. Now to the big one, cameras. We do have two very different camera systems where there's a dual camera setup on the Edge and there's a single camera on the Air. How well do they stack up? This is not like a full camera comparison, but I want you to take a look at just these images, and we'll talk about some of them in a second here as we go through. Now we're taking a look at both cameras on the iPhone Air and the Galaxy S25 Edge. Shooting with the front-facing camera, 4K 30, and you get an idea of how it looks off just the device. The Galaxy looks a little bit flatter, while the iPhone looks to be quite more colorful in general. And then we'll switch to the rear cameras. Now here are the rear cameras at 4K 30. Walk into some sunlight, which will give us an interesting look. And I almost tripped right there, but you get an idea. Just showing you some of the park right here. Very nice, very nice. There we go. Cool. Very, very interesting. Now, the one thing I'll say with the Air is that the color accuracy, especially when you looked at some of the images where I was wearing that black shirt with the white dots, that's a black shirt. While on the Galaxy, it looked more like a blue shirt, or like, you know, a little navy. There's a lot of blue hues here. I did try it with multiple edges, so that still was still the same color science here. And Samsung also has been going with a more muted tone, while the iPhone has a lot more color and vibrance. I will also say this, my skin tone looks really good on the iPhone, maybe just a tad bit little good, while the Galaxy is pretty much more in line, but it looks like I also am very ashy and I haven't actually put some lotion on. So, you know, when it comes to skin tones, I think the iPhone Air has the edge here in this case. Same thing with portrait photos. The iPhone looks really good with the portrait photos here, which is very nice. Now, one thing I'll mention is the iPhone does not have an ultra-wide camera, so the Galaxy takes the edge there, and it's nice to have the ultra-wide camera when you're doing certain things. But turning to the front-facing camera, that's where the iPhone has the edge, of course, because the Air has that center stage camera, and it's the only camera that can do this. I honestly think this would be a game changer feature for a lot of people using the front-facing camera this way, and I think this is a feature that a lot of people are going to copy. Samsung should copy it, yes, I said that, because it just makes for shooting with the front-facing camera so much easier, and you don't have to turn it sideways or anything like that, because it's centered. I like this. This is pretty cool. And I'm walking into sunlight right now, and let's wrap this up. Which is impressive. It's great to actually see that and see how that functions, because you can capture more without, you know, doing this. You don't have to like turn your camera this way to record. You just put it in front of you, and that's it. You can record yourself that way. There's also dual recording, which is cool. I'm glad the iPhone has it now, but let's be real, it's been around since the Galaxy S4. Remember that. That's a long time ago for a lot of people. So it's nothing new here. Samsung has a different feature where you can actually select more than one of the sensors at once. So basically you can select either the ultra wide and the rear, or you can just do both the ultra wide and the regular main sensor. So that's something that's a bit different there that Samsung actually offers that is actually pretty cool and interesting. But that being said though, I think overall when it comes to photo and video here, the iPhone is beating the Edge here with the camera. So there you have it. There you have it. Both devices are pretty solid. In the camera department, the iPhone has the Edge. I'm saying that too much, I know. But when it comes to other aspects like the speakers, battery life, and just usability, I think the Edge is my pick here. I think Samsung can fix a lot of that imagery with some software updates because they do have pretty good sensors there. So that's something that can be fixed. But Apple has brought a very good device with the Air. I think it's something a lot of people will like, but they will have battery anxiety. Just like range anxiety on an EV, you're gonna have the same thing here. So you definitely have to pick up this guy to use as a power bank, or you can use one from our friends at Anker too. That also works well with it. It's not an issue. This one just kind of fits better and also doesn't give you too much weight as well. We'll have a link for the Anker one below in the description. I think people will like the Air. I think the price point is also really good at $999. Consider the price point for the Edge is $1,099, so $100 more. But to be fair, you can find the Edge for lower, like $849. That's available out there. And I think at that price point, it's a steal. Now, it all depends on what you want to pick or what you like or what ecosystem you're in. I mean, if you're in the iOS ecosystem, then maybe the Air is that device for you. Or maybe it's another device, which I have a video dropping today, which you should go check out as well. It's probably on the channel right now. And I think that is probably the best iPhone this year. But till then, go check out that video, enjoy this video, check out my gaming video, and always enjoy your entertainment.